Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. I'm out in my vegetable garden today because I have a very important task to take care of, and that is thinning some of my vegetable seedlings. This is such an important thing to do if you want your plants to grow and develop well, especially root crops. So today I'm going to thin beets, Swiss chard, carrots, and turnips. By the end of this video, you will be an expert. While I was talking, you were probably noticing a bunch of these white covers on some of our raised beds. This is called floating row cover, and I love this stuff. It is a lightweight fabric. It lets light and moisture through it, which is great. Early and late in the season, it gives a few degrees of frost protection, but what I mostly use it for is as an organic pest control tool. It acts as a physical barrier to keep the adult form of certain types of bugs away from certain types of crops. In this bed, this is where the beets and Swiss chard are planted, and they are very susceptible to leaf miners. The adult is a fly. It lays eggs on the leaves. The eggs hatch into maggots. They tunnel through the leaves and ruin your crops in nothing flat. Spinach is also a member of the beet family, and it is also very susceptible to leaf miners. So by having this cover over the crop, it will keep the adult fly from getting to the leaves to lay eggs, so it disrupts the life cycle. I also use floating row cover over cabbage family crops, so those would be things like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kale, kohlrabi, rutabagas, and so on. And they can get aphids and also cabbage worms. They are really bug magnets. Now, beets, spinach, and Swiss chard and cabbage family crops do not need to be pollinated at all. So that means I can leave this cover over their beds for the entire season, other than for harvesting and thinning, as we're going to do today, or weeding. And that way I'm going to keep those bugs away, and the crops will do great, and I won't have to deal with those nasty pests. So that's what these white covers are for. Now let's get to the beets and the Swiss chard. Other than this half row down the middle of this bed, which is Swiss chard, the rest of all of these plants are beets. Now the beets should be separated so that they have about 3 inches between each plant, and that is to give the beet root room to grow. So I'm just going to go in here, do my best to make that kind of spacing. And the thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to save what I've pulled out, put them in the refrigerator so that we can add them to our salad tonight. No point in letting it go to waste, right? With the Swiss chard, it's a little harder to see, but I'm trying to give the plants a good 6 inches of spacing, which is painful to do because I didn't plant all that many seeds, and so I'm trying to preserve as many plants as possible. But you better believe I'm saving the thinnings from those too, because those will be great in a salad or steamed. Okay, this bed is all thinned. And you know, when I was planting the seeds, I sure didn't feel like I was planting them closely together, but apparently I was. And also, the other thing that happens is Swiss chard and beet seeds are actually clusters of seeds, so you do get quite a lot of growth coming up. But these plants will perk up in a little bit, and they're all set, so let me go ahead and cover this bed to make sure those leaf miner flies don't get to the plants. Okay, thinning carrots is next, and you'll notice I have bird netting over this bed. That's because the quail and some other birds like to nibble on freshly sprouted seeds and the really young seedlings. But now that they're all at least about 3 inches tall, they should be able to fend for themselves. So I'm going to take the netting off and leave it off for the rest of the season. Yay! Thinning carrots can seem like a daunting task, but it's very doable. You know, I used to broadcast carrot seeds throughout a bed, and then having to thin among carrots growing every which way was a nightmare. So now what I do is I plant them in rows, probably like normal people do, and then all I have to do is thin them within each row rather than in relation to all of the other carrots growing around it. What you want to do is go with about a 3-inch spacing, just like I did with the beets. And if you see any weeds along the way, you want to pull them up. So let's get started. What I tend to do is first grab a little bit of a clump and then go about 3 inches over and grab another clump just on the other side of that, and then do the fine tuning. So there is a nice spacing. This one's already in good shape. So just thin around it. This is in good shape. So you can see it goes actually more quickly than thinning beets for some reason. Okay, the carrot bed is finished, and it took me about 10 minutes, believe it or not. There were so many seedlings, but once you get the hang of it and you get into the rhythm of it, it goes very quickly. Now I wanted to explain what this is running down the middle of the bed. These are micro misters, and they are a part of the drip system just on this bed. And the idea was to give them a little bit of extra moisture early on so that the seeds would germinate well. That worked great, as you can see, because we got amazing germination. But now it's turned off because last year we had a little bit of a fiasco, and that is we thought that the plants would benefit all season long from having more moisture on a daily basis. Unfortunately, to our horror, what happened is the carrot roots split open because it was too much moisture. So we decided, okay, we're not repeating that little disaster again. Let's just use the drip lines like we normally do once the seeds have germinated. One other thing I wanted to mention is that we do not get carrot rust flies here in our eastern Washington state garden. I know some regions not too far away have experienced problems with carrot rust flies, but so far we're doing all right. However, if you live where you get carrot rust flies or you've had experience with them in the past, in my new book, The Vegetable Garden Pest Handbook, I have such an easy solution to keep them away from your carrots. So you might want to check that out. It's a DIY project in the book, and oh, it's so simple. The last seedlings that I want to thin are my turnip seedlings, and they're growing under this cover with our broccoli. And boy, is the broccoli doing great. Now, both turnips and broccoli are members of the cabbage family, and as I mentioned earlier, they are bug magnets. So that's why they're under this cover. But instead of being actual floating row cover, this is tulle or bridal veil netting, which also acts as a barrier to keep the cabbage moths and the cabbage butterflies away from the plants, and also to keep aphids away. Now you can see the broccoli a little better. Aren't they amazing? I am so delighted that they're doing so well. And in the foreground you can see the turnip seedlings, and there's another row on the back side of the plants. But yeah, look at the broccoli. Yeehaw! Turnips are super easy to thin. I'm going again with about a 3-inch spacing, and if I see any weeds anywhere, out they come. Might as well while I'm in here, right? So you just have to pick a starting point and go from there. I got a really nice plant that I'm aiming for. Okay, so that's that little section done. Now to do the rest. The turnips are now thinned, and I need to get that bridal veil netting back over this bed to protect the plants. In my book, you can learn more about using row covers in your garden and also how to make different types of hoops that will support them over a bed. In my video, I mentioned my new book a couple of times, and this is it, the Vegetable Garden Pest Handbook. Isn't it a beauty? It's been out just a month now, and I have been getting such nice reviews of it, which makes me feel great. This is the guide that gardeners have been needing for forever. If you're interested, I am offering signed copies of it now. All you have to do is email me at susan@susansinthegarden.com, and I'll make it happen. It's very secure and very easy. Well, now I can check thinning seedlings off of my very long list. Thanks so much for watching today, everybody. I'll see you next week.